What's going on, guys? I don't do these types of videos very often, but I felt like I needed to go to the flea market. The weather is finally getting acceptable out in northern Illinois here, and I thought, you know what? I got the itch to go to the flea market. Why don't we scratch that itch and go pick up some stuff? So I went to the Wilmot Mountain flea market. That is not at Wilmot Mountain anymore. It's actually at the Kenosha County Fairgrounds today. And did manage to pick up some stuff and got some pretty good prices on some stuff. Wheeled and dealed and dealt with some people, and they were willing to work with me on the price, so not too shabby there. So these are my pickups, and again, this isn't something I do very often. I just really don't have the time to make it out there to any flea markets these days, so it's kind of a rare occurrence. I kind of go once in the beginning of the season and then maybe mid-season, end of season, and that's kind of it, because I'm pretty happy with how my collection stands currently. So here are some of my pickups, and as you saw from my Midwest Gaming Classic video, I've been on a bit of a Sega hunt. I have a decent Sega library, I guess, now that I've really taken the time to go through and play some stuff, review some stuff, and see what the fat out of the group is. And there's just a few titles that I've kind of missed and have wanted to pick up, and some of the titles aren't necessarily great, but I do have some memories of borrowing the system from my dad's friend. So why don't we get into the Sega pickups first, and our very first pickup here is Sonic Spinball, which is an okay game. I like pinball. I'm not a huge fan of this game, but the price was right. It was like $2. Went and grabbed that. Next up is T2, the arcade game from Arena. This is an okay port. This is one that you could actually use with the Menacer, which, believe it or not, I do have and does work. And now that I have the HD Retrovision cables, I can actually split off the green signal, if I remember correctly, that delivers composite video, I think that is, and split that off to a CRT TV and play on that, which will be pretty cool. So we'll have to fire up some Terminator. Next is Evander Holyfield Real Deal Boxing. My dad had a buddy that let us swap systems every once in a while. So for the Super NES, our SNES, he let us borrow his Genesis, and this was one of the games that my dad particularly loved. My dad was always a big martial artist, but he was also into boxing as well. And being a fan of Punch-Out, he wanted to see how Sega's big boxing game handled. And I remember he had a lot of fun with it, and I had a lot of fun with this too, playing it by myself. So for the cheap price of like $1, I decided to pick it up. Staying with the Genesis theme, this is a box and cartridge copy of Tasmania. I really have no history with this game whatsoever. I am very familiar with the character, obviously, but I do remember that this was one of the big CES games that Tom Kalinske was like raving about as far as their lineup went for early Genesis titles. So again, the price was right for this. Pretty cheap, just a couple bucks, so I decided to pick it up. Switching over, but staying on the Sega list of things, more Sega games that I've picked up, and I actually have a pretty decent Master System collection. I got into Master System when stuff was cheap for it, maybe like, I don't know, 7, 8, 9 years ago, and have been lucky ever since to just find really cheap titles. It's not overly expensive, and more people are checking it out, but the price was right for these as well. I actually got both of these for $10. It was $5 each. Originally the guy was asking $10 each for them, but they are missing the manual. The labels are a little chewed up, a little faded, and the boxes themselves are in just in okay condition. But Afterburner and Action Fighter, very familiar with Afterburner, not necessarily this port, but Action Fighter I've never quite played, and I don't know if it is a particularly great title, but again, it was cheap, so why not? Moving on, I guess we'll move on to the system here. This is obviously a PlayStation 2, a fat PS2, and this is the combo pack version that came with the network adapter, ATV Fury 2, as well as a controller. I think I already mentioned the broadband adapter. I've been looking for a boxed PS2 system for quite some time. Ran into one today, picked it up from the seller. I kind of went back and forth a couple times over there. Originally, he wanted, I think it was like 60 bucks for it, and we got him to drop the price down on it substantially, especially because it was missing the broadband adapter, which isn't a huge deal. I have a couple extra broadband adapters, and we're going to go ahead and clean up the system itself. I opened it up. It does have obviously the system, the controller, the AV connections, the power plug, controller, the discs minus the ATV Off-Road 2, which is a little bit of a bummer, but not a huge bummer. Not a huge fan of the game, but I've always wanted a box PS2. Now I have one. I just got to clean the system up and try it out, make sure it's good. Now the guy did mention that the system itself worked pretty good. Taking a look at it right from the get-go, I can tell it's a bit dirty. It's also not the same model system that is advertised in the actual box here. These particular PS2 systems were 5000 series. Inside of it was a 3000 series, so a different PlayStation 2 model. Don't know how well, how good, how bad a 3000 model is. I know I've had a couple of 5000 models that just don't play right very well. The lens on it kind of sucks. I have a 5000 model over there actually that functions so-so. I got to go through my PS2 systems and really clean them up, test them out, and see what works and junk, what doesn't work. But overall, the price was right, and now I finally have a boxed PS2 system, so I could knock that one off my list. Originally, I wanted the original blue box PS2, but those have hiked up in price substantially the last time I looked, so no big deal there. Alright, my final pickups for the day. Scratched my Street Fighter itch, and I will probably put this by my Street Fighter 2 cabinet downstairs. Back in the days of Street Fighter 2 mania, there were cartoons, there were action figures, there were comic books, there were all sorts of stuff, and there were the G.I. Joe action figures. There were the small 3-inch G.I. Joe action figures, which I thought was cool at the time. I had the vehicles, my little brother had some of the characters. We loved it, right? Eventually, they released these huge versions of the Street Fighter 2 characters, and what you see here is Guile and Ryu. Guile has never been opened, Ryu has never been opened. They were asking 10 each for these. I asked if they'd do 5, and they went ahead and just let me do 10 for both, which was cool. But complete in box, very cool. I think it's hilarious, the stuff that's included in this stuff. For example, when was the last time that Guile pulled a samurai sword out? Handgun, looks to be a M16 rifle with a rocket launcher. And then Ryu, you know, always known for his assault rifles, his hand grenades, all that stuff. It's funny that Hasbro just really didn't have any idea what they were really doing. I know it was a crossover with G.I. Joe, but just kind of funny when you think about it. Pop these back over here. Look at all the cool stuff you could get. Let me see if I can zoom in on this here. See if the camera will focus on it. You get the Dragon Fortress, the Beast Blaster. Over here, these vehicles, we had the Sonic Boom tank, but game pro tips here, little bios and all that stuff. Pretty funny, but yeah. That is what I picked up today, and like I said, this isn't something I normally do, but I was here, I had the camera, and I figured, why not? So, thanks for watching.